That's good. So yesterday, Swami Atma Jnananda ji told us a wonderful story about Swami Vishuddhananda ji. Just one second, I don't want to go over time. Swami Vishuddhananda ji tells a nice story about Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother. You remember it? Anybody remembers? No, আপনি জানেন আমি because Swami Dayadananda ji, when he gave classes, the next day he would ask a question. You remember, everybody's quiet. And he says, I see everybody has come with a fresh mind. So you know, you all remember the story that a devotee asked, who is greater, our Thakur or Ma? And this our was a biased question because of that word. So there is no correct answer. It's like when, you know, some neighbor asks a little kid, who do you love more, your dad or your mom? It's a silly question. If the parents hear that, they will be mad because they don't like that kind of question. So who do you like more? They are both great in their own way. So it's hard to understand the relationship between the avatar and the Shakti of the avatar. What does it mean? For us ordinary jivas, how can we fathom that relationship? But we can get some clues about it. In the life of Holy Mother, there is an incident. One of her attendants had a neighbor who was a young boy, and he was kind of temperamentally independent, a little quarrelsome, you can say. So he told him, why don't you come to meet Holy Mother? And the boy said, okay, let me go and see her. And he liked Holy Mother, and he decided to stay there for a few days. So Holy Mother also liked the boy, and she told him one day, tomorrow you come and take a bath early in the morning, and come and I'll give you diksha, I'll give you initiation, I'll give you a mantra. So the boy came, and Mother gave him a mantra, and at the end of it, Mother pointed to the altar with Sri Ramakrishna's picture and said, bow down to the Master. And the boy said, why? He was a little quarrelsome. Why? Mother said, well, he's your guru. And the boy said, no, you are my guru. You gave me the mantra. And Mother said, no, I am your mother. He is your guru. And the boy said, no, my mother is at home. You are not my mother. My mother is at home. So this went back and forth. And then Mother said very forcefully, no, I am your mother. And the boy looks up and he sees his own mother, who is at home. He sees in Holy Mother his own mother. And then he has this awakening that, oh, she really is my mother in every sense. And then Holy Mother says to him, bow down to Sri Ramakrishna. He is your guru. He is your all in all. And
please keep the question. Yeah, don't give them one by one. Okay. Yes.
So I think these little incidents, they seem very trivial, but they can give us an inkling into how they think of themselves. You know? Holy Mother is telling, Sri Ramakrishna is your guru, he is your all in all, I am your mother, although she gave the mantra. So it's like, okay, Sri Ramakrishna, perhaps he is our guru also, and Holy Mother is also our mother. You have a beautiful hymn that Swami Abhedananda composed on Holy Mother, and in the final verse he says, Jananim Saradam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagat Gurum Pada Padmitayoshitva Pranamami Muhurmuhu. So there you see the same idea. Somehow Swami Abhedananda ji conveys the same idea. taking refuge at the holy feet of Sarada Devi, the Divine Mother, and Sri Ramakrishna, the Guru of the whole world. I bow down to them again and again. So Swami Abhedananda called Sri Ramakrishna Jagat Guru, the Guru of the whole world. And he calls Sarada Devi the Mother Divine. Same idea that Holy Mother said to that little boy. I am your mother, he is your Guru. So that is one way we can look at it. Swami Chaitananda Ji, in his introduction to the biography of Holy Mother, which you will find in our bookstore, he says some beautiful idea. He says Sri Ramakrishna his life was condensed spirituality, like the snow of the Himalayas. Holy Mother's life was like flowing spirituality, like the water of the Ganges. Now, when you think, it's a beautiful idea because snow and water are the same substance, but yet they behave in different ways. One is like a condensed in the Himalayas, from the Himalayas to the Bay of Bengal, and people dump all kinds of things on it, and still Ma Ganga carries everything, supports everything. So Sri Ramakrishna, condensed spirituality. He could not touch money. He could not touch metal even. He could not tolerate a newspaper near him. He could not tolerate worldly people around him. When you look at Holy Mother, she was surrounded by these things. So you could say that Sri Ramakrishna has one way of teaching us through his life, and Holy Mother has a different way of teaching us. You need both. Just like a child needs both parents. Yes, a single parent can raise a child, and they can do a very good job. But if you ask anybody what is the ideal arrangement for a child, and the ideal arrangement is the father and the mother together. The child will learn some things from the father and some things from the mother. They have their own departments, what to teach the child. So Sri Ramakrishna could be that he teaches us how to turn away from the world, how to be detached. And Holy Mother, her message seems to be how to commune with God in this world, in the midst of it all. So anyway, these are some ideas about Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother, the avatar and his power. It seems that the avatars always need the Shakti, the power to operate. Now somebody asked, what about Jesus? Well, you could take the Virgin Mary as the Shakti. It doesn't need to be a spouse necessarily, but you see this female principle, this power manifesting. In many countries, the Virgin Mary is more important than Christ. So somehow Shakti will find a way in the life of the avatar.
Okay. So thank you for those wonderful words, and I just want to carry on in the same vein. Swamiji, what you just said about Sri Ramakrishna being like snow, being the concentrated spirituality, and the Holy Mother being like the Ganga. It also reminds me of the iconography of Shiva and Shakti. There's that very famous image at the Dakshineshwar Kali temple, Ma Kali, and she's active, right? She's fighting the demons, she's engaged in the world, and Shiva is in a completely blissful state, lying there, eyes closed, representing that concentrated spirituality. And that's very much their relationship. Sri Ramakrishna himself viewed the Holy Mother as mother, right? Even though their relationship in that lifetime was as spouse, she once asked him, how do you see me? What do you think of me? And he said, my mother, referring to his biological mother, the mother in the temple, so referring to Ma Kali, and you are all the same mother. Right? That's how he perceived her. I want to talk a little bit about some of the teachings of the Holy Mother. I think she's far more philosophical than she's often given credit for. And so some of these very short but very wise and powerful sayings of hers have really stuck with me. One in particular, when she says, if you want to have peace of mind, don't find fault with others. Instead, look for fault within yourself. We spend so much time finding fault with others and being very unhappy about those faults and complaining about those faults. But if we look very closely, we find very often the things that we don't like in others are some of our own traits that we have not yet fully understood or processed. And if we focus on those, if we work on improving ourselves, we find ourselves so occupied with that we don't have time to find fault with others, right? It becomes a full-time job because there's plenty to work on right here within ourselves. And something very important too, I in my career, as probably a lot of you know, I teach students about these things. And sometimes people will say, isn't that very unhealthy, only finding fault with yourself? What if someone is very abusive to you and you say, oh, well, this must be my fault, and you don't stand up for yourself, right? This is not, I think, what the Holy Mother is saying. I think that what she is saying is that this is a practice for ourselves, right? This is a way that we can find peace of mind. And that's the context. She begins this teaching by saying, if you want to have peace of mind, don't find fault with others, find fault with yourself. It doesn't mean being blind to the ills of the world. And the Holy Mother certainly was not. She was very aware of injustices that were happening in her time, poverty, and she instructed the monks to address these things and did all that she could to address those problems. But in our own sadhana, our focus needs to be on improving ourselves. And if we sit in meditation and we are thinking about how terrible other people are, we're really not meditating, right? We're really not doing our sadhana. So find fault with ourselves so that we can perfect ourselves, and don't worry so much about the other people, right? Another teaching of hers that I find very profound is when she says, and this has already been mentioned a couple of times this weekend. No one in this world is a stranger. See everyone as your own. Make the whole world your own. I think this is one of the most powerful statements of Advaita Vedanta that there is. I mean, to me, it is akin to a Mahavakya, because it is applying that insight in a practical way, right? And of course, Swami Vivekananda was fond of this term, practical Vedanta. So if there is a unity of existence, if we're all one, what does that mean in terms of our lives? How should we live if that's true? Well, how we should live is to see others as ourselves. And of course, there's this wonderful commandment found throughout the world's religions that we should treat others as we wish to be treated. The Gita talks about seeing God everywhere, seeing God in all beings. And the Holy Mother has put this very concisely. Everyone is your own. And of course, there's this wonderful word, alienation, right? When we think of people as other, then we separate ourselves from them, and we create a gap, and that gap can be filled by prejudice, by hatred, by fear, all kinds of things. In many ways, what the Holy Mother is offering is a corrective to something that was observed long ago by the great philosopher Spinoza. Spinoza talks about how human beings tend to love based on proximity of the object of our love to ourselves, right? So we love our own family, right? We love people who are like us. Maybe they speak the same language. Maybe they practice the same religion. Maybe they look like us. We love people from our own nation, right? I'm always struck by how whenever there's a plane crash abroad, the reporters always mention how many Americans were killed. It's like, what about the other people? There were a lot of other people on that airplane, you know. So you know, you're looking first at your own group, and then you can extend that even further. We value human life over the lives of all the other creatures we share the earth with. You know, the animals, the plants. They're also terribly important. God dwells in them as well. So if we see all as our own, then we're undercutting that tendency toward a kind of egotistical approach to love, right? Because all beings are our own, not just those who agree with me, who look like me, who talk like me, and so on. And so this is all very, very profound. A story I'd like to we've heard a lot of wonderful stories over this weekend, and Swami Atmagananda has shared a few more today. I think my favorite story about the Holy Mother occurred shortly after Sri Ramakrishna had left his body, had passed on. And she saw him in a vision. And he spoke to her. It was as if he was standing right there. And he said, "Why are you in mourning? I've just moved from one room to another." Right? And so just as someone we love, maybe they leave this temple and they go down to the cafeteria downstairs. We don't mourn for their loss, right? Say, well, they're down there, you know. And so in the same way, yeah, I've left my body, but I still exist. As the Gita teaches, the eternal self does not die, does not pass away with the body. And he gave her a very interesting commandment in this vision. He said, I'm still your husband, I still exist. He said, you should not put away your bangles and keep wearing your sari with the red border, right? Traditionally, Hindu widows of that time and place would give up all decorations and would wear simple white sari. And so for the rest of her life, the Holy Mother wore her bangles and wore her sari with the red border. And there were people who were scandalized by this. So this is not proper behavior for a widow. And she had a wonderful reply. Well, this is what my husband told me to do. So I'm not disrespecting him. I'm obeying his wishes, right? And so every time I see the photograph of Holy Mother, of the various pictures of her after Sri Ramakrishna's passing, and she's wearing those bangles and she has that red bordered sari, this is a statement about the immortality of the soul. Right? He is still there, right? He's still real. And I want to share a little bit, I don't want to take up too much more time, but a couple of events from my own life that illustrate the ongoing presence of Sri Ramakrishna and the Holy Mother. They are real, they exist in the world even now, right? They have not gone. So the first one I want to narrate happened about 10 years ago, 2013. And there was a conference that I attend every year in November, American Academy of Religion, and it was held in Baltimore that year. And my wife, Mahua, was not around. She was in India. She was on a sabbatical, and she was using the time to take care of her father. And so I was living here alone, and my very good friend Pravajika Rajaprana, who many of you I think know, came for the conference, and she stayed here at this center. And I was staying at the hotel where the conference was happening to be close to all of the events, but I knew she was there, so I offered to be her cab driver and pick her up and bring her back and forth from the conference. And it was also an opportunity to come and visit here at the center. So during this period, I was experiencing some stress. And if you write or speak publicly about religion or spiritual life or anything, I know all the Swamis know this, sometimes you get strange people reacting to you in negative ways because of that. They don't agree with something you said, or they don't think you were the proper person to be saying this or something. And I didn't realize how much it was disturbing me at the time, but it was actually disturbing me quite a lot. I came here to pick up Sister Vajrapana and take her to the conference, and she wasn't quite ready, and so I was talking with Swami Atmagananda. I told you were a character in the story I'm telling today. And Swami Atmagananda says, well, she's not quite ready. Maybe you could go sit in the temple and go pay your respects. So I have to, I came into the temple, I came into this room where we all are now. No one else was here. I walked in, I saw the murti, the statue of Sri Ramakrishna there. And it was radiating such love, such a sense of welcome. And Swami Atmagyanananda said today about, was talking about the sense of welcome people always received in Ramakrishna's room. I felt that when I came in here, and I burst into tears. It was as if the burden of all of this anxiety had just kind of lifted immediately. So I felt completely loved and accepted in this space. So I stayed, I did my meditation and then left. It was a wonderful experience. He was present. I can't prove it scientifically or rationally, but I'm convinced. You can't persuade me that was not real. I had another experience with the Holy Mother that I think some of you might have heard me narrate this before, but I was having a conflict with someone, and it was sort of an ongoing thing, and it was a person I couldn't sort of avoid, it's a kind of a workplace thing. So you run into someone, and it's not that you can just avoid that person, right? So I took the problem to the Holy Mother, and I got a very powerful message, just a sense that the Holy Mother was speaking to me, and she said, "Make peace." And I didn't like that. I was like, this person has said this, and they've done this, and they're this way. And then I got the message again, and this time it was a little more insistent. Make peace. So I said, okay, I will listen to the Holy Mother. So the next time I had to meet with that person, I said, I'm going to follow what the Holy Mother said. I'm going to forget everything they've said and done and all the negativity that I've experienced, and I'm just going to treat them like anyone else I would meet. So I came into this person's office. I was cheerful, and they responded in kind. They were cheerful and kind to me. They were nicer to me than I think I'd ever seen them be. And for the rest of my relationship with that person, we've gotten along fine. We never resolved any of the previous issues. They just kind of were set aside. So this was the Holy Mother's advice. So again, I think she's very much a presence in the world. The last thing I'll say is if you ever get an email from me, you might notice another great quote from the Holy Mother in the signature of my email, where she says, "One who makes a habit of prayer and meditation remains calm and unruffled in the midst of the trials of life." And that's always spoken to me, so I kept that in my email signature. It also keeps me honest when I'm writing emails. I don't write anything that sounds very angry or unruffled, because it would contradict what the Holy Mother is saying. But the experience I want to share with you is that a number of times after I incorporated that signature into my email, I thought, well, it's been there for a long time. I should change it. I should put something else there instead, right? And before I would get a chance to do it, I would receive an email reply from someone, any person, and they would say, "By the way, I really love the quote at the end of your email. It really inspired me." This happened, I think, about 7 or 8 times. It's like, okay, I'm going to change it. And then I almost immediately get an email from someone saying, "I really like that quote." So finally I gave in and said, "Okay, Holy Mother, your quote is there forever," right? I have a nice Carl Sagan quote there too, but it's like not instead of, it's in addition to. So these are living presences in our lives, and we just have to open our minds and our hearts to that, and we'll experience the same benefits as the people who were with them when they were in the physical body. Oh, thank you.
So, are there more questions or?
I can do this one if you want.
Yeah, because I already dealt with
Yeah.
And then we can just
Today is
do.
the last day, so we don't have to worry about the time.
Oh, okay.
A little bit over.
Okay.
Still be fine for my nap in the afternoon.
Okay. Once in a while, I look at you, Maharaj, and see how you look.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's very appropriate to one of these questions. Someone said, "How do I know if I dozed off or I had a real meditation during my meditation?"
Repeat
Yes. How do I know? So the answer I'd like to give is we definitely know if someone else has dozed off. I lead a meditation group once a month at our college, and a few years ago, one of the young men who came said, I would like to meditate in the Shavasana. I would like to lie on my back and meditate. And I said, okay, fine. He fell asleep and he snored loudly through the whole program. It was very distracting for everyone there. And so from that moment on, no Shavasana allowed in the meditation group. You have to, whatever posture you use, you can sit on the floor, you can sit in a chair, but you have to sit upright. Right? So we definitely know if someone else has dozed off. I think for ourselves, we will know this because Swami Nikarananda might want to add more to this, but my sense in meditation is that like sleep, we do go to those deeper levels of consciousness, but we go there with our awareness. That's the difference between, say, dreaming or maybe seeing the Holy Mother or seeing some vision in our meditation. It's different from a dream because we're awake, right? Our minds are lucid, and we know the difference between those. And I guess maybe more of a joking difference is, if you feel your chin hit your chest, you've fallen asleep. But I think typically we can differentiate. But so no one feels terrible about this. I think it's not an uncommon phenomenon if you have not had sufficient sleep to fall asleep meditating. You become very relaxed, and it's just easy to. And if you're trying to sleep and you have insomnia, then meditation, that's when the Shavasana has its function. Right? You can just lay there in bed and, use your mantra.
Yeah, well, I think that was very good.
Okay, thank you. No more to say.
So we have 5 questions, and maybe I'll take this one. Vivekananda's early life prior to come in touch with Sri Ramakrishna. Doesn't sound like a question. I mean, it's like Vivekananda's early life prior to come in touch with Sri Ramakrishna. Well, I mean, you can read the life of Swami Vivekananda, which is in our bookstore. Hey guys, you're giving me the chance. I mean, you are asking for it. So I think we leave it at that, because Swami Vivekananda's early life before meeting Sri Ramakrishna is, you can go on the whole day, just read.
There are 2-3 editions of that book.
Oh, okay. That's a good point. So anyway, just have a look, and I'm sure you will find something that it is wonderful. It's just a matter of, it's too vast to deal with it in the short time we have. So.
Oh, you give me the hard one. Oh. Yeah, this is there's quite a bit here. So they've even titled this. It's like a little essay. Avatars and Confusion. I went to a Buddhist monastery where Buddha's words were on the wall. Be a light unto yourself. I went to a Catholic church. The father there said, believe in Christ and worship him. Your salvation is assured. I went to a mosque and the imam said, worship of anybody, including prophets, is prohibited by God. It's a cardinal sin. Worship only God. Sri Ramakrishna said different things to different people, so I am not sure. Some avatars advise to kill bad people, some advise to forgive them, yet other avatars advise to serve enemies. Am I confused, or is God unable to make up her mind before coming down to help us? Okay, so this is the question, and as best I can try to address it. So when we talk about this world, right, when we talk about the world of time, space, and causation, right, we're talking about what we call Maya, right? So Maya, sometimes it's translated as illusion. I don't like that translation. I think appearance is a good translation. This whole cosmos is the manifestation of the divine. And yet the divine is playful, and the divine is tricky. And so this manifestation occurs through a making of things seem real that are ultimately not real. Right? It is an appearance, right? And so within that appearance, one of the clues we have that it is an appearance is that it involves self-contradiction. There are contradictions in reality itself, right? Not just in our minds, but in our experiences, right? That there are concepts that seem utterly incompatible, and yet they both seem to obtain in different times and places, or sometimes even in the same time and place. So if our aim is to become free from all this, right? That's what we mean by salvation or liberation. Then we have to learn to, as it were, thread the maze of Maya. And in so doing, there are all kinds of basic principles that we can follow that will lead us the right way most of the time. But there are also circumstances that are very specific to a particular time and place and person. And in those cases, it may be that what would be the right thing to do in one circumstance is not the right thing to do in another. For example, we know that there is great power in concepts like nonviolence, forgiveness, and so on. And yet I would argue that preaching that to someone who has just suffered from violence could itself be a form of violence, right? That people have to come to that when they're ready, when they realize that carrying around this hurt that they've experienced is not a healthy or happy life. Then they'll say, okay, how do I let this go? But us wagging our fingers at them and saying, you need to let that go is not helpful at all. It may be counterproductive. So there may be some situations where we just listen, right? And maybe we don't agree with what's being said, but we understand that it's coming from a place of being hurt, and that person has to experience that. So there's a metaphor I like to use with students also when we talk about different paths, as this person about Buddhism, the Catholic Church, Islam, Ramakrishna. So what is the correct path? And it all depends on our starting point. Who are we? Where are we? What are the particular sanskaras that we are dealing with? So I use the example of Pittsburgh. And you might say, what do you mean by Pittsburgh? So where I live in Elizabethtown, Pennsylvania, if I ask someone, what is the correct way to go to Pittsburgh? Well, you take Highway 283, then you get on the turnpike, and you go west to Pittsburgh. So west is the way to Pittsburgh, right? Okay, and everyone agrees. Now, what if we're in Chicago and we want to go to Pittsburgh? What's the correct way to go to Pittsburgh? East, right? At least if you don't want to go around the whole world, right, you need to go east. So you go east to go to Pittsburgh. You get on Highway 80, and then, that kind of intersects with the turnpike. You go south a little, and then you're in Pittsburgh. So now a listener can say, well, wait a minute, we just heard that the path to Pittsburgh is west. Is that not the one true way to Pittsburgh? Well, not if you're in Chicago, right? And so what we're taught is the various religions, the various teachings and philosophies were all appropriate to the people to whom they were taught in a particular time, in a particular era of human history, when that is what people were prepared to accept. And we find that when traditions become very long-lived, even within the single tradition, you'll get disagreements and different interpretations because times change, people change, and maybe what was appropriate at one time is no longer appropriate now. Last example I'll give of that, Swami Vivekananda once spoke of the phenomenon of what Varna and Jati, what people today call caste. He says it had a utility at one time in history. And then he said something very strong. He said, today it is filling India with its stench, right? I mean, he was very strong in what he said. But basically he was saying this was something the ancients developed, and it worked well for them, and it worked for a long time, and now we see problems with it, right? So we can't become overly attached to any one path or way. We have to understand that a path is a path, it's not the goal. So.
That was great. And it's a very difficult question to address. Now, if I may take it from a different angle. Please. So the title of the question is Avatars and Confusion. Okay? So I think Jeffrey did a great job because it's very confusing. But there is a solution to the confusion. Our concept of Ishta Devata. Okay? You accept your ideal, make it Christ, make it Buddha, make it Ramakrishna. Nobody cares in Vedanta who you choose. And once you make one of them your ideal, you only care for what they said. And the other guys, you don't have any problem with them, okay? It may be in some area what Jesus said contradicts Sri Krishna, or what Buddha said contradicts Ramakrishna, or whatever. It doesn't matter, because Buddha has his own devotees, Ramakrishna has his own devotees, and there is beauty in diversity. Everybody cannot think the same way. So Vedanta's solution to the problem of confusion, which is real, is all-pervasive in this world, is make a choice. All these avatars, they are like stars, okay? You have the sun, and you have another star so many 100 years, light years away, and you will find in the sun there are certain planets revolving around the sun. And in another star there are other planets. So the star is the avatar, and the devotees are the planets. If you are going around the sun, you will not get out of the orbit to go to another sun. You stay there, you can't help it. You are caught. You can't get out. So if you're a devotee of Sri Ramakrishna, you like to be there. And if a Christian comes and says, but Sri Ramakrishna said this, you say, I don't care. I like Sri Ramakrishna. You may be right, I don't know, but I just like Sri Ramakrishna. So that is one way to look at this, because you cannot get out of the contradictions. You can only make a choice. And as Sri Ramakrishna said, everybody says my watch gives the right time, but nobody has the right time. So. I'll let you read them and deal with them first.
Okay. So we can do the tag team, right?
Yes.
Good. So please advise the meaning of devotees of Sri Ramakrishna. Is this their last life? I think that's something many of us might have heard. You know, once you take Diksha, once you take initiation, this is your last rebirth. Here's where I'm going to say I don't know. I do. Well, I'll even go so far as to say no and not just believe. I do know that taking initiation and getting on this path is a tremendous boost to your spiritual life, and you avoid certain problems, certain things. This has been my experience. Many things have just become easier since I have taken initiation in the family and the lineage of Sri Ramakrishna. It is, and I've had a lot of correspondence with friends in other lineages who've had similar experiences in their tradition. I have several friends in the Meher Baba lineage, and he has an expression. I think it goes back to the poet Rumi, where you're in an oasis in the desert, and it says, "Stay in the shade of the palm tree," and the palm tree is the avatar. The palm tree is your master. You stay within that, and you'll survive and you will thrive. Does it make it your last lifetime? I'll defer to what Swami Nikarananda has to say about that, but my understanding of liberation is you're liberated from having to be reborn, right? The sort of karmic process. But we've heard that figures like Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda chose to come into this world. So that's a free choice that those beings make. So it could be that someone becomes liberated, this is their last lifetime, but they come along with Swamiji or Thakur or Ma in some future lifetime to be one of their companions to help their mission in the world. So I don't really know, is this the last lifetime? I know it can be. There's one thing my guru told both my wife and myself. He said, you could get liberation right now. And my wife said, how? And he said, just let go. And it's like, easier said than done, but conceptually, it makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm. So, please advise meaning of devotees of Sri Ramakrishna is their last life. Well, what you can say for sure is there's no guarantee that it is your last life, but it will boost your chances that it will be. If you want to boost your chances, you are a devotee of Sri Ramakrishna or of any avatar, when you take to spiritual life, you are more likely to be liberated than if you don't take to spiritual life. Now, in the life of Sri Ramakrishna, you will find that Mathur Babu, Sri Ramakrishna said, he had to be born again. Why? Because he had the desire to enjoy. So he served the avatar for 14 years, and he had to be born again. So what to speak of us? So the thing is, do we want to be liberated? You know, that Chandra, Holy Mother's devotee, he went to Sharat Maharaj said, go to Holy Mother and ask for liberation. And he was joking, but Chandra said, I will, I'm not afraid. The moment he was in front of Holy Mother, she said, what do you want? Like in a serious mood. And he said, prasad. So, do we want liberation? That's the question. Yeah, we are devotees of Sri Ramakrishna, but we also have our own limitations. So the best thing is to surrender, and Mother knows better. She knows what is good for us.
So this next one says, once a question arises in our mind, are we supposed to reason or just accept what we read, Sri Ramakrishna says, and do not argue? So, well, Swami Vivekananda himself argued and reasoned, and I don't think we're better than him. Also, if you look at the classical Advaita Vedanta, there's the idea that there's Shravanam, there's hearing, or in our modern world that could also be reading. Then there's Mananam, there's reasoning, thinking about it. We hear it, we read it, but then we also struggle with it. We try to understand it. And then after understanding it conceptually, intellectually, then there's nididhyasana, then there's realizing it. There's really incorporating that intellectual realization into your life so that it is manifested in your life. So that middle step, that mananam, that involves reason and argumentation, as I understand it. Now, of course, we also encounter the phenomenon of people, and maybe we do it ourselves, who argue just to argue. That's unproductive. That's pointless. And of course, there's some things that we hear, and they just immediately we can understand and accept them. So there's no need to reason and argue. But when you have a question, that question's there. Yeah.
Once a question arises in our mind, are we supposed to reason or just accept it? What we read Ramakrishna, that
what we read that he says.
And do not argue. Say, so somebody said, questions will arise in our spiritual life as we progress. So they say some of the questions can be answered by reading the scriptures. Some of the questions can be answered by asking your guru. He will give you the answer. Some of the questions will be answered by your own mind in meditation. And some of the questions you have to learn to live with them. Because only when you realize God, you will get the answer. So these are the four things we have. One is the scriptures, they can answer some questions. Then the guru, and then our own mind as we progress. But then there are some questions that we have to wait until we become illumined.
In the Rinzai Zen tradition of Buddhism, there's this wonderful practice called a koan, which is a question that really doesn't have a rational answer. And your task as a sadhaka in that tradition is to just keep reflecting on it. And I think some of our questions are like that. Yeah.
That is, what is the sound of one hand clapping?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's not this, right? It's something else.
Yeah.
So, what is your view on the origin of desire or mind? Is desire before mind, or can we, escape with the idea of Maya for both?
I'm so glad you are reading the questions.
Do you want to start with that?
Can you read it again? I mean.
Okay. So what is your view on the origin of desire or mind? Which comes first, right? Is desire before mind?
Okay.
Or do we just say it's all Maya? I can say a little bit about this.
Okay.
So I spoke here a few months ago about the topic was what makes the four yogas work, and the question I posed was, well, what are the yogas trying to do? Right? They're trying to free us from bondage. Well, how do we get into that bondage? And I delved into several traditions, and one that's invoked by Swamiji himself is the Sankhya tradition in India, where out of the original unity, there's a differentiation which occurs. Now, according to Advaita Vedanta, that differentiation is only apparent, right? Brahman is just Brahman. But an apparent differentiation emerges. That's what we call Maya. And once there's that differentiation, once there's the concept of a separate self, you and me, right, then out of that, various aspects evolve. And so Sankhya talks about, manas and buddhi and so on, these various levels of mind. And my interpretation of it is, of the two, desire is the most primordial of these, because it is desire that fuels the evolutionary process. Mind evolves because there's curiosity, right? There's desire to know. So the capacity for knowledge, the buddhi, the intellect emerges, and then that's not sufficient. You need sensory data. So then you get the physical body and the sensory world emerging, and so on. And I know there's in one of the Upanishads it says something about desire being sort of the foundation of this whole sort of process of rebirth and so on. But there's a lot of literature I haven't read, so there may be other views on this.
I'm very happy with your answer. That is perfect. So I think we covered, Maharaj, the questions.
As they say on TV, but wait, there's still more.
Oh my. Oh, it's just one. Okay. What can students of Advaita learn from near-death experience? You want to start?
Oh, I love this topic.
Okay.
This is a funny thing, just a side anecdote. There is a Dr. Jeffrey Long, not me, our names are spelled differently, who studies near-death experience. He's a cancer doctor, and we get each other's emails sometimes. And I once gave a talk, I think it was the Vedanta Society of New York, and someone came who was very disappointed that I was not that other person. I study India. So, but this topic is very interesting to me, and I have studied it a bit. So what can students of Advaita learn from near-death experience? So one of the first teachings in Advaita Vedanta is we are not this physical body. Right? We are not this body. And so near-death experience, the phenomenon that most of you probably have heard of or are familiar with, people who have, from a sort of medical and legal perspective, have died, no heart activity, no brain activity, and then they return and they recount maybe floating above their body, seeing doctors trying to revive them, and then ascending to a higher plane. They see a light. They see Derishta Devata. That's not the term that most people use, but Christians will see Jesus. Buddhists will see, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and so on. So you see a divine form. You also may see other people that are dear to you who've passed on, and then somehow abruptly you come back. My father had I would call it a very light near-death experience, meaning he didn't see any of those things, but he felt very serene when his heart stopped in the hospital, and he was actually angry with the physicians for bringing him back because it was a very peaceful state. This is a controversial topic. There are people who will argue that you only have near-death experiences because of chemicals in the brain that are there to keep you from panicking when you're in that state. But there are some accounts that are very difficult to address through that rationale. And the strangest one I ever heard, it's very peculiar, and it's in a book by David Ray Griffin. Someone had this experience. They floated above their body. They looked down at the operating table. And then they floated above the hospital where they were where they were being operated on. And they saw a pair of red shoes on the roof of the hospital. And it was just an odd enough sight that it stayed in their mind. And then they had the sort of classical near-death experience, and they returned. And then they narrated this to people in the hospital. And a curious nurse went up the stairs and went to the roof of the hospital, and there was a pair of red shoes. Don't know who they belonged to, but maybe they later heard the story and said, oh, that's my shoes. But it was there, and that's not something this patient could have known on the operating table, right? So in terms of Advaita Vedanta, I would say not only Advaita, but any spiritual path, stories like this can give us some amount of confidence that there is something to all of this, right? That it's not merely sort of something that we could explain in a physicalist or materialist way. It doesn't necessarily prove it, but can increase our confidence in that.
Yeah, I agree. I haven't studied the subject, but I have seen enough YouTube videos to to have some idea. And most of the people, they don't gain anything from that. They are not making any money. They come across as very genuine. Can we learn a lot? Probably not. But as Jeffrey said, we can get some confirmation about the things like we are not the body, we are much more than the physical body and things like it's quite interesting. I mean, these people, many of them are atheists, but this changes their lives. It's before and after. So I think there is something there, definitely.
There's one more question. Are you still taking it?
Are we still taking questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, lunch is not until 12:30.
Oh, okay. Okay, then we should be okay.
It looks like we have a couple here.
Okay. What about?
Shall I?
Yeah.
How often do you do mantra? Do you do it constantly? So, well, if you've taken Diksha, one of the instructions you're given is to practice meditation twice a day, morning and evening, and to recite your mantra at least 108 times. That's one cycle of a mala. And then when you have more time and the ability to do it in more such cycles, so in cycles of 108. And something that I've also been told in the Vedanta tradition, but I've seen this in other traditions as well that I've studied, is that it's good to keep your mantra in mind all the time, right? And there's this verse from the New Testament which says, pray constantly, right? Now, constantly is difficult. For example, you go into deep sleep. But as much as possible, right? So I find that if I'm engaged in some repetitive activity, for example, I can do my mantra, right? If I'm taking a walk alone, I can do my mantra silently in my mind. And just the more you do it, the better, right? It reminds you of your devata, reminds you of spiritual path, keeps the mind calm. And when you have very bad experiences, some anxious time, I broke my ankle back in 2019, for example. I did my mantra a lot in the hospital and, while I was recovering. So constantly may be difficult, but I mean, that's a good, maybe aspirational goal to have. The minimum, at least, is the twice a day. So,
what is this one?
let's see, what about other saints like Amma, Sri, I assume that means Sri Ravi Shankar. Are they...
Ma and Ramakrishna?
Are they Ma and Ramakrishna? Oh, that's an interesting question.
Well, if you want them to be, it's up to you. We were talking. Swami Atmagyanandaji was talking yesterday or today, I think it was, that Sri Ramakrishna was so broad. He never criticized anybody, and sometimes it's painful to see Vedanta people just laughing at other not avatars, but other teachers, even if they pose as avatars. Let them. Why should we criticize them? There's supply and demand, okay? If there is a supply, because there is demand somewhere. It shouldn't bother us. If everybody wants to be an avatar, let them. We have our own. So that is I don't need to laugh at this question, because who knows? If they are Sri Ramakrishna and Ma for you, that is perfectly fine. Now, are they for you? If you ask me, I would say no, they are not for me. I have my own Ramakrishna, my own Ma. I am happy with that. Now, regarding how often do you do mantra, do you do it constantly? There is a very easy test. If somebody comes and says to you, I do mantra all the time, there's a very simple test. See what life they live. What kind of life? If you're doing the mantra constantly, you cannot have any desires. There was a Swami in our order who used to hear the Om all the time. He was desireless. He was a saint. Such a person can claim, I hear it all the time. But if somebody who is just all over the place, trying to enjoy life, says, I hear the mantra all the time, I repeat it, I have my suspicions, because that mantra will not allow you to lead an ordinary life. You cannot lead an ordinary life and be engaged in japa all the time. They don't go together. If you are immersed in japa, you just cannot do the other stuff. So that's an easy test. So the fact that we all function so well in this world proves that our mind is very much here, okay? And we are trying to raise it.
So, last question.
What is Brahmananda? Is it an intelligent?
Oh, Brahmanda, yeah.
Oh, Brahmanda, sorry.
Yeah.
Brahmanda. Is it an intelligent?
I think field of God?
Field of God. Brahmanda.
Yeah.
Brahmanda.
Brahmanda. It's a state of consciousness, right?
So you seem to be familiar.
My tentative answer would be yes.
How is it spelled?
It's Bramanda. Brahmanda. Yeah. The cosmos, right. Yeah.
The entire creation.
Right.
Who wrote the question? We want to know what they
Yeah.
Those are critical questions.
Right.
Yeah, it's a bit.
So yeah, it's a term for the whole field of existence, right? The cosmos. So, is the question, is the cosmos itself intelligent? I would say yes, because we're all part of it. But and it's something I need to study more deeply.
Yeah, no, I think, I mean, we call it Sat-Chit Ananda. So the Chit part is consciousness. So this reality, you can call it, it's a reality. The universe is a kind of reality for us, and we are part of it. And there is intelligence manifest here in different ways. So, yes.
And according to Vedanta principles, nothing can come from nothing. Right? So if there's intelligence, then there must at least be intelligence in potential in the cosmos. So therefore there is intelligence. I like this phrase, an intelligent field of God. It's got me just kind of pondering. Sounds like a neat title for something.
Okay, Manas. I think we are very close to lunchtime. Thank you.
It's fun working with you.
I can throw in my 2 cents on one of the questions, just because it was an interesting question. It was actually a question that was asked to Holy Mother, that Thakur used to say, those who come here are in their final birth. And she gave a very interesting answer. She said, it doesn't have to be the very last one. There may be 1 or 2 more, but it's a finite number left. She gave a very interesting answer, because Thakur, sometimes he would say things, and then he would also say, you have desires, you're born again. So we have to try and understand it from that point. Anyhow, the wonderful session, and we applaud. Okay, now we have lunch, and then 1:30 to 2:15 we'll have another bhajan session. Okay, so everyone please go down to the basement and don't dawdle. Yeah. So everyone knows what dawdling is now, huh? Yeah. Thank you.